But in case you don't, let me introduce myself. I'm Patrick Higgins, head coach of Centurion Wrestling Club, and I wanted to take time to record this video just because, so some of you may have seen, I've been writing posts for my website to try and explain some of the mindsets I've applied throughout my wrestling career, mindsets I teach to my athletes now, and also talk about some of my experiences at Penn State or throughout like my high school career, even my youth career. So essentially what I'm trying to do with this video, and basically try and keep it a little short because I know, when I was a kid, I didn't read that much, especially like long blog posts. But I want to try and create as much of an impact as I can and really get a lot of this information out so that it can help your athletes, it can help other coaches or even parents, really whoever can find value in what I'm teaching here. So the first mindset post I wrote, and if some of you have seen it, read it, a lot of this will make sense. If you haven't, I'm going to link that with this video post. So you should be able to read it unless you're on Instagram, at which point you'd have to go to my actual website to see it because Instagram won't let me link things. But essentially the first mindset I wrote about, and all of the mindset related posts on the site are called Centurion Mindset, just essentially mindsets that I teach to my athletes in practice, in personal stuff, and kind of really drill into their head the mental aspect of the sport because there's so much to the sport, technique, strength, agility, but I think the biggest thing is mindsets. A lot of my teammates at Penn State, they had just incredible mindsets, and something that when I got into that room, I realized I had barely scratched the surface on. So now as a coach, my desire is to make sure that that's something that I can help improve. So the first mindset I'm going to talk about today, and it was the first post on the site, is this mindset of win or get better. Now, to start here, one thing is I don't teach this mindset lightly. I think this is something that's very important to any athlete, especially wrestlers, because wrestling is very individual. It's very different from other sports. In a team sport, if your team loses, there's a little bit more of a blame game. In wrestling, you're the only person that there is to blame. So there's a lot of emphasis on winning. There's a lot of emphasis on getting the results. So what win or get better is meant to do is to teach athletes and just kids in general to not be afraid to fail, to not be, unwilling to take risks. My best teammates at Penn State had such a mindset that they didn't care what happened to them in matches. It was like there was never even a shadow of a doubt they were going to lose unless they got injured. It was really just about the fact that they didn't care. They would do anything it took to win, no matter what the score was. So, and that's what win or get better truly is. It's about making it more about the process of improvement over the idea of just chasing that result. Because honestly, you're not going to win every time. In wrestling, in life, in general, there's never going to be a 100% success rate. Nothing in this world has that. Even the best athletes ever have lost. So at some point, you're going to lose. The key is to not let yourself be defeated. So that's the really important part of win or get better that I teach to my athletes. Now, in the posts, I used a lot of quotes. I'm a big quote guy, and anybody who knows me in real life will know that I love quotes, I love metaphors, and so what I'm going to do in this video is just kind of outline some of the main points from my article and just kind of go through. So the first quote I used was, "Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing." And this is a quote from Henry Russell Sanders, who was the UCLA football coach in the early 20th century, so like the 1930s, that time, like a long time ago, basically. Now, everybody thinks this quote's actually Vince Lombardi's quote. It's not. And I learned that in researching for this post. Now, Vince Lombardi did say this, but Vince Lombardi actually backtracked on what he meant with his intent of this quote. So Vince Lombardi actually said that winning isn't everything. The will to win is the only thing. Now, what that means and why that differs from it's the only thing is it's not necessarily about the results. It's the desire that you wanted to win and you were working like you had every intent to win that match, that game, that race, whatever it may be. Now, I like the second quote because it changes the mindset where winning is not what Lombardi prioritized. He wanted his athletes to want to win, to do everything it took to win that game. Or, if they lost that game, to do whatever it took to improve so that they won the next one. Now, that's what I teach my athletes all the time, is that it's all about winning or getting better. I used to say win or learn, but some kids seem to react weird to the word learn, so I went with win or get better. And that's an important thing. Now, another quote I used in the article, and this quote is from somebody who has gone down in history the world over as one of the most important human beings to ever live. And that's Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. Either I win or I learn." And I really love that because obviously it basically is the same thing I'm saying here, win or get better. But I love that it came from Nelson Mandela, a man who was imprisoned for his beliefs and eventually became the president of South Africa and really revolutionized the way the world sees so many things. And that's what's important here, is that if somebody as important as that and somebody as big as that person is to history, they prioritized getting better. So he was never defeated. He never felt like the world was unfair to him because he didn't get the result he desired. He wanted to learn from it. Now, that kind of paragraph in the article builds into the next thing I talked about, which is trial and error and not being afraid to fail. So in athletes, there's often this idea of like perfectionists. Like you gotta be like perfect. Everything's gotta be perfect. I gotta do this perfect. I gotta do that perfect. And don't get me wrong, I even talk about that. Like that you need to have good habits. And that's another video I'm gonna talk about. But it's not about perfection. It's about improvement. So you can get better with more deliberate like practice, but you're never gonna be perfect. And so one person who was very far from perfect, but also so instrumental into the way the world is now, was Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison, for those who don't know, invented the light bulb. So anybody who has a light bulb anywhere in anything really can thank Thomas Edison. But what very few people know is that Thomas Edison failed about 10,000 times before he actually invented the light bulb that we know today. So if he had stopped at try number 200, which that's a lot, like he tried to invent something 200 times, like for a lot of people, that's a lot. Now, there were probably a lot of people like, oh no, like keep going. A lot of supportive people in his life. At try number 1,000, a lot of people in his life were probably like, dude, just give it up. Like it's not gonna work. You can't do it. And he'd never listened to that. He kept going, 9,999 times. He was still failing, but on that 10,000 try, he got it, and it worked. So it wasn't about the idea that he wanted that light bulb. It was about that he was going to do whatever it took to get to that result. So each failure taught him something new, which is why his quote is, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And I love that quote. I think about it all the time in everything I do because life really is such trial and error. When we come out as babies, like we can't do anything. And, we learn to walk, we learn to talk, we learn to read, and we do so through trial and error. When you're a baby, the first thing you do when you walk is you don't just put your legs down and start walking. You build up to being able to stand and balance yourself, and you fall over a lot initially. And then eventually you can stand on your feet and you kind of put one foot in front of the other, you take a couple steps and then you fall back down again. But now, like when you're older, walking really isn't something you have to think about. It's just something you do because you, through trial and error, taught yourself how to do it. Now, a lot of people are athletic enough to be able to trip and fall, but still catch themselves because they've taught themselves that. Like, these things evolve through trial and error. And so that's another big thing, is failing deliberately. And that builds into the next point and the next quote, which is fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. John C. Maxwell. So if in the article I talk about John C. Maxwell's book, Failing Forward, and it's a big thing in my life to try things and try and do them to the best of my ability, but know that if I fall short, it's okay. I can fall short, I can fail, as long as I learn from it and push forward. Now, failing forward is a huge thing because a lot of people think failure is negative. When you take a test in school as a kid or in college, wherever you may be, you typically see the wrong answers you got and you think, oh, like I messed it up. I did that wrong. Even me as a student, like I did that. I thought, oh, like that sucks. I got that wrong. I should have known that. But what's different and what the best students do is they learn from the ones they get wrong. Some people get very few questions wrong on tests. And the reason being is that they've made the mistakes in other places and then they don't make the mistake again. So that's what failing forward is. As long as you take those wrong answers and work through them, figure out why they were wrong, what you did wrong, what you can do better, talk to your teachers, or, in the case of sports, talk to your coaches. Whatever helps, that's how you get better. That's how you improve. And so that's really important to me. And teaching that to my athletes is huge because the kids that understand that there's no risk when all you know is you're going to get better are the kids that are going to take it to the next level, because there's not going to be the fear. There's not going to be this idea of something can go wrong if I do this. It's going to be, I'm going to do this and either it's going to work or I'm going to learn from it. And that's what win or learn means. Do it, try it, fail, see if it works. If it doesn't work, ask a coach, ask a parent, ask a teacher, how do I get better? Now, that's a big thing, and that's hard to do. But the key here is to understand what fear actually is. So a couple of the books I've read and a lot of the podcasts I've listened to have talked about how fear is actually an acronym. Now, most people think of fear as one thing or another, but what they describe fear as in its acronym form is false events appearing real. Now, I like that definition, and I like that acronym for fear because it is true. Like, there's so many things that I've been fearful in my life that I think about now. I'm like, why was I afraid to do that? Or like things I wasn't afraid of as a kid, now I'm paranoid about. Like when I was a kid, I could run through the woods full speed, not care if I fell into a ditch or ran through a spider web. Now I freaking go out in tall grass and I'm checking myself for ticks. I don't know what happened to me. Fear crept in. But it's easy now that I can rationalize like why I'm afraid and why there's things to think about. But also like I need to understand I really shouldn't fear that because life's meant to be lived and chances are meant to be taken. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is probably one of my favorite books I've ever read and listened to, and that is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. The next quote is, Goggins is back on the log. Now, for those who don't know who David Goggins is, he's a Navy SEAL. He's a certified, just complete badass. He did Army Ranger School. He tried out for Delta Force. Like, he did everything. He wanted to prove he was a man amongst men. And one of my favorite stories from his book, and I'm not going to try and steal too much of his thunder. If you haven't read or listened to that book, I highly recommend it. Can't Hurt Me. That's the name of it again. And it's a story about how in his SEAL training, he was refusing to basically be stopped. Like he went through SEAL training 3 times. And each time like something crazy would happen, he'd get hurt, until he finally passed. But one thing that was funny in his story is he talks about how there's a training, in the SEALs, they call them, what is it? I can't think of it. It's like one of their like trainings that day, basically, I guess. Evolution. That's what it's called. It's one of their evolutions. So in one of his evolutions, they had to carry a giant log. Like the whole team had to carry the log and run with it, like over obstacle courses, miles, into the water. Like, it was crazy. They have to do a lot of stuff to become a Navy SEAL. And so one of the funniest stories from that is that he started getting hurt, or he had like some sort of issue. I don't remember exactly. But either way, like, the instructor sat him down. We're like, dude, you're done. And they tried to like put him like basically to not be able to carry the log with his team. But when they wouldn't look, he would sneak away and get back on the log. And so the instructors were over the radio, and you would hear like, all right, we got Goggins. And then you would hear Goggins is back on the log. And it's so funny to me because he was refusing so much to be sat down, to be told he couldn't do it, that he was pushing through possible, like, really severe injury to get back on that log. Now, that's really a win or get better mindset. That's a do whatever it takes mindset. And I love that, because to get back on the log is a huge thing in anybody's life, especially in athletics. When you lose a terrible match, when you lose a really heartbreaking game, whatever it may be, or anything in real life, like maybe you get fired, whatever it be, to get back on the log, get back on the horse, for another metaphor, is not always the easiest thing. But when you have this mindset of win or get better, win or improve, survive and advance, whatever you want to call it, you wound up getting to a point where it's not going to matter. And you're going to just do whatever it takes to get back into the game, to get back into the match. Because that's all you know, to win or get better. If it doesn't work, I'm going to try another thing. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try another thing. If none of those work, I'm going to figure out why they didn't work, and I'm going to improve it. Now, the last thing I talk about in the post, and the last thing I want to wrap up here with, because I'm sure this video is kind of long. I can't see the timer. My phone's facing the other way. But I want to preface that this mindset is not some rah-rah yuppie stuff. And that's a quote from me. And because that's what I believe. I'm not saying these things as some, like, oh, good job, Jimmy. Like, you did great. I believe in you. Like, go out there and give your best. Like, that's not what I mean. I'm very competitive, and I coach very competitive, and all of the best coaches I've had in my entire career are super competitive people. But they've all emphasized the right things, which is not to make it about the result. It's about the process. It's about getting better. And it's about best effort in the sense that you did everything you could to win. And if you didn't get the result you wanted, you're going to learn from it. My coaches at Penn State, they would never be upset if I lost a match if I was trying things. If I was going whistle to whistle the entire 7 minutes or however long the match lasted. They would only get mad if I didn't do everything I could to win. And so this is not rah-rah, like, let's go team type stuff. This is truly apply this mindset and you will get better. You will improve as a person, as a student, as an athlete, in whatever way you're doing it. Because win or get better is so important, because life is too short to get hung up on what went wrong. You need to learn from it. You need to get better. You have to improve. And so that is the biggest thing I can take away here is I want you to understand, I'm not saying this just to encourage you to think like, oh, it's okay to lose. Listen, I'm not going to say it's okay to lose. I'm just going to say I don't want you to think of it as losing. I don't want you to think of it as defeat. You can lose a match. I lost a lot of matches in my time. I lost a lot of everything. And so what I always took away from it was that I was never defeated. I was never so upset that I never wanted to do it again. Even when I quit wrestling in 6th grade, I wanted to come back in 7th grade, and I didn't. Played basketball, sucked at basketball, learned that lesson. Came back in 8th grade, and I wanted to get better. I didn't care who I lost to. I just wanted to get better. I would wrestle the best guys I could, get my butt whooped, as long as I knew I was improving, as long as I knew I was getting better. So win or get better is not some cliche thing. It's not some just basically like coach speak, for lack of a better term. It is truthfully a mindset to improve your life as any capacity. So if you're a coach, if you're a athlete, if you're a parent, just any happenstance person to find this video or whatever, apply this mindset or try to apply this mindset. Listen, you're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. There's a lot of things that I do get hung up on because I wanted to go a different way, but it didn't go that way. But now I know that I need to learn from that and I need to improve all of my mistakes. So if you made it this far, I know this is going to be a really long video, but I want to thank you so much for listening and taking the time to learn from me. I hope you found value in it. If you did and you liked this video, please consider sharing it in whatever way you watched it. And if you think there's somebody who can also find value in it, maybe just directly send it to them. But again, I'm going to keep trying to do these types of things so that, for the people who don't like reading, maybe you just watch this or listen to it. And because I want everybody to get better, whether I coach you, whether I coach your athlete, whether I've never met you in my life, it doesn't matter to me. I want to help you. And I want to make this world a better place in whatever way I can. So thank you for listening. This isn't a Centurion mindset. Win or get better. Tune in for the next one. And I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you. Have a great day. Patrick Higgins, signing off.